The life of an anime fan is filled with questions. Is that brand new 12-episode anime that I just fell in love with gonna get a second season? Is covering my desk in hentai stickers the best financial, emotional, or professional decision I could make currently? But by far and away, the question that most of us end up asking when it comes to anime is, what happened there? See, obviously the question of what happened there is incredibly broad, and it branches into a million possibilities when talking about anime. The what happened there question can be anything from, please, somebody out there explain to me what the ending of Neon Genesis Evangelion actually means, to something as simple as, what was Hashirama's Sage Mode? And unfortunately, the Naruto community is plagued with these kinds of questions. I mean, unfortunately for you, not unfortunately for me. It's my job to answer them. Because Naruto is an anime and a manga that builds an incredibly expansive universe with hundreds of characters who get semi-fleshed out backstories. Because there's so many characters up in the air at any given moment, we don't get the full backstory or full powers to a lot of these characters. We don't know if Kiba could recruit 12 dogs and make a 13-headed wolf. We don't know what kind of sage Hashirama was. We don't know how Orochimaru figured out the evidence to create the curse mark. But the beauty of having lingering questions like this that we really don't know the answer to is that we get to speculate. And while obviously speculation isn't as satisfying as having a concrete answer, well, at least we get to talk about it. But amongst all of these questions floating around the Naruto community, I genuinely believe there isn't one more prominent than, what was Madara's MS ability? See, Madara for hundreds of episodes was hyped up as the final baddie of Naruto, and probably should have been. The sheer mention of his name shot a shiver down the spine of ninja who had known he was dead for decades. Prominence and fear this man was able to garner in just one lifetime is historic. And on the back of his own power and determination, he almost managed to turn the world upside down. But you would figure with a character so prolific, so powerful, and in so much of the story, we would know pretty much everything there is to know about him. But we don't. See, while we understand what the Rinnegan abilities of Madara was, some of his Sharingan abilities, what we don't know is something that's incredibly important to all of the highest level of Uchiha, what his MS abilities were. And while fans have speculated for years and poured over every crumb of evidence available to us, we've still never really been given the answer. That is, until now. See, this is a video that I genuinely can't believe I haven't made yet. And you can thank Chapter 80 of Boruto for inspiring me to make it. See, me, I'm not your average Naruto fan. Not that I hold anything against your average Naruto fan. B, I eat, sleep, and breathe lore. I'd like to think there's only two other people on the face of this earth who know more Naruto than me. And one wrote it, and one is my predecessor. So with the level of determination and power that Madara took into taking over the world, I've taken into finding out the truth behind his eyes. And I think I've come to the answer. So sit back, relax, and get your thinking caps on, because today, we're talking Madara's MS ability. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me doing deep dives into anime of any kind, then you're gonna love my other page, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto and Boruto, we talk all of their anime. Just posted a roughly 35-minute video about Gojo versus Sukuna. You should go watch it. And if you love just the idea of me talking about anime, Naruto and Boruto very much included, you're gonna love my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, that I'm doing with Danny Mata, where me and him break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We're gonna be having Toph's voice actress on the show in a couple of weeks. So the Mangekyou Sharingan, one of the strongest abilities in Naruto, known as the Kaleidoscope Eye, or the eye that reflects the soul. See, we've been talking a lot about the MS recently because of what happened in Chapter 80 of Boruto, which I won't spoil right now. But as I was sitting down and thinking about the MS and how the abilities of the MS are a reflection of the person who awakes them when they awake the MS, I got to thinking about how many MS wielders we know whose abilities we don't know. Well, obviously Madara is the most clear in evidence. There's also other people like Fugaku, who's known as Wicked Eye Fugaku and only technically has an anime canon Mangekyou Sharingan. And it got me thinking, why don't we know the MS abilities of these characters? These characters that are supposed to be some of the strongest and most prominent people in Konoha's history, we know so very little about. And if that applies to Fugaku, then it quadruply applies to Madara. Madara is one of the most enigmatic characters in anime history. We should know everything about him, and yet we don't. And people have theories as to why we don't. The Madara that we all know and love is incredibly powerful, borderline broken. His Edo Tensei itself, with just the use of his 2 Rinnegan that he awoke at the end of his life, was able to go up against 20,000 shinobi. Madara, just Madara was able to wipe out almost the entirety of the 4th division of the Shinobi Alliance. His fire style was so powerful that it took the entire division's water users to nullify it. He was able to pull meteors from the sky and rain them down on his enemy. His majestic flame flower gave him the ability to create fireballs the size of meteors that killed thousands of people simultaneously. Insane when you consider the fact that the majority of those fireballs were able to get dodged or blocked using Earth style. He killed all 5 Kage at once, all without ever using anything that even resembles a Mangekyo Sharingan ability. And this is where people begin to theorize. People begin to go into lengthy debates saying that Kishimoto purposely didn't ever show Madara using his MS ability because if he did, there'd be no way to defeat him. That the Madara that we saw was such a menace that if you gave him anything like Tsukiyomi or Amaterasu, it would have been wrapped. While others would make the argument that Madara doesn't use his MS abilities because he believes that the entire Shinobi Alliance is beneath him going all out. That is to say that this rendition of Madara we saw slicing and dicing all of the 5 Kage and 20,000 Shinobi simultaneously was holding back. Well, not necessarily holding back, he was being incredibly brutal. But to use all of the cards in his hands against a force he considered so meager would be giving them too much respect. Well, a third camp states that Madara did actually use his MS abilities, however, his MS abilities don't manifest in a flashy way like Amaterasu or Kodowa Matsukame, while instead his MS abilities are something much lower key. Not lower key in the way of being weaker, just kind of a passive buff, stating that his MS abilities aren't something that's visible or projectable, they're just something that helps him in his combat. But regardless in which of these 3 camps you stand, the point still stands that Madara never clearly used his MS ability. Unless, of course, he did. There are currently 4 theories about what Madara's MS abilities are, and 2 of the theories are okay, one of the theories is pretty good, and one of the theories I believe is correct. So let's start with the ones that are so-so, because they're actually very popular. The first and one of the more popular theories that people posit is that Madara's MS ability is actually his ability to call meteors, also known as Madara's Tengai Shinsei. See, Madara is the only person we've ever seen outside of Toneri, kind of, who is able to call meteors from the sky and use them offensively. You know the scene, is this the power of a god? And what are you gonna do about the second one? And honestly, people assuming that this is Madara's MS ability isn't the craziest idea of all time, as Madara is the only person we've ever seen use Tengai Shinsei. However, some people will try to discredit this being Madara's MS ability because Madara appears to need to use his Susanoo to pull it off. That is to say that the first time that we ever see Madara use Tengai Shinsei, he summons his Susanoo and then has his Susanoo do the hand signs to pull it off. And these same people go on to theorize that since Madara needs his Susanoo to pull up this technique in the first place, how could that be his MS ability? Since you need dual MS to pull off a Susanoo in the first place. So how could you get an MS ability predicated on the fact that you need dual MS? What if you were put in a situation similar to Kakashi or Obito or Shin, where you only had one MS? You wouldn't be able to use his ability because you wouldn't be able to summon the Susanoo to pull off the hand signs. And honestly, rationale-wise, I think this is thin and also kind of stupid. Obviously, yes, to use this technique for the first time, Madara did summon his Susanoo and then made the Susanoo do the hand signs with him. However, just because Madara pulled out his Susanoo doesn't mean that it's required for this jutsu. Because you know what Madara isn't? Immune to meteors. Well, obviously, Madara had an Edo Tensei body, and if he got hit by a meteor, he would have been fine. That fine would have had to happen eventually, at which point Madara would have been susceptible to being sealed while he was regenerating. It makes a substantial amount more sense to protect himself from the meteor using the strongest defensive jutsu known to man, the Susanoo. However, the reason that I don't believe this is his MS ability isn't because he used his Susanoo. The reason I don't believe this is his MS ability is because Tengai Shinsei is essentially Chubaku Tensei. Now I know what you're saying, Madara never creates the black sphere and throws it up into the air to generate the meteor, which is exactly how Chubaku Tensei works. You have to generate a gravity sphere in your hands, you gotta throw it at your target in order to make them the center of the gravity sphere. It's at least how it works in the hands of Nagato. We understand that Nagato, as a Rinnegan wielder, needs to generate a gravity sphere and throw it at whatever he wants to seal. However, the true core nature of Chubaku Tensei is control over gravity. And it's never explicitly stated that you have to use Chubaku Tensei to seal people. And while we never see Nagato whip around one of the meteors that he creates using this technique, we do see Sasuke do it. Sasuke and Naruto, after they defeated Kaguya using 6-pass Chubaku Tensei, which also doesn't require the generation of a black sphere, it just requires the sun and the moon seal hitting somebody, making them the center center of gravity, Sasuke immobilizes all of the tailed beasts around him and makes them the center of gravity without even touching them, sealing each and every single one of them into a meteor that he funnels the power out of. And Sasuke is absolutely seen manipulating these meteors, as he needs to be able to bring the meteors with him to specific places so he can funnel power out of them. That is to say that Sasuke shows us that not only do you not need to create a black sphere to pull off Chubaku Tensei, but you can also manipulate the meteors after creating them. So while yes, it would be a cool idea that Madara's MS ability is the ability to throw these meteors, we all but pretty much know it's a Rinnegan ability. But since we're talking about Rinnegan abilities, the next theory is also usually considered a Rinnegan ability, because the next thing that people theorize to be Madara's MS ability is Limbo. Now, people theorizing that Limbo is Madara's MS ability is born out of the fact that he's the only Rinnegan user we've ever seen with this ability, which admittedly is a bit strange, but not really that strange. But we'll go into it in a second. Let's dive into the meat of this theory. The first question that a lot of people would ask when they hear this theory is, if this was Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan ability, why wouldn't he use it more often? That is to say, why wouldn't he use it against the likes of Hashirama? Why wouldn't he use it during the war arc before he gets the real Rinnegan back? As the first time that we see Madara use Limbo is when he gets one of the Rinnegan from Zetsu, which led everybody to believe that this was in fact a Rinnegan ability, as he didn't use it until he got one. Which the counterpoint is that while Madara might have had access to this ability in his lifetime through the use of his MS, it got stronger after he died. Or not necessarily after he died, but after he fused with Hashirama's cells. Simplify that even further, that is to say that for the majority of Madara's life, even though he did have Limbo clones, it might not have actually been clones. It's a possibility that Madara's use of Limbo was actually significantly weaker while he was still alive. See, we understand that Madara in his 2 Rinnegan state is able to create 3 Limbo clones, and only those who have Sage to 6 Pass Chakra or Rinnegan are able to react to or see these clones. It's a possibility that by becoming the Ten-Tailed Jinchuriki and by having Hashirama's cells attached to him, that Madara's Limbo became even stronger, and that maybe while he was alive, he was only able to generate 1 or 2 Limbo clones that could be sensed through just regular Sage mode. And since Hashirama was almost always in regular Sage mode, these were basically just clones to him, and therefore they didn't really amount to anything special. And unfortunately, outside of battles in the 4th Great Shinobi World War and against Hashirama, we've never really seen Madara fight. We obviously know he pulled up on people like Inoki and Mu, but we don't get to see those battles. So it's a possibility he could use these techniques against people who weren't sages, but while facing arguably the greatest Sage mode user of all time, having clones that he's able to sense would just be clones. Or it's a Rinnegan ability. See, calling Limbo an MS ability is kind of flying in the face of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Madara couldn't use an ability until he got his Rinnegan. It's probably got something to do with his Rinnegan. Also, the concept of Madara having a unique Rinnegan ability isn't crazy. Every person who's ever awoken a Rinnegan on their own has a unique Rinnegan ability. Sasuke has Heavenly Hand Power, the ability to swap his body with other things. Kaguya has the ability to teleport parts of her own dimensions to her current location. Hagoromo has Creation of All Things Jutsu, which is probably tied to his Rinnegan, but we're not like entirely sure. And Madara has Limbo clones. The reason that Nagato didn't have any unique Rinnegan abilities because they were never his. So he got the base of the base with no special effects. And even though he got Madara's eyes, that doesn't mean that he gets Madara's unique ability. Even though that line of thinking does kind of fly against the fact that you can just rip out somebody's Sharingan and you get Kamui. But genuinely, we don't know that much about Rinnegan, so who knows? But all in all, it feels like a stretch to assume that Limbo has anything to do with Madara's MS. What I do think is a significantly more possible scenario, though, is probably the most popular theory of what Madara's MS ability is. And that's because when it comes to the amount of information we've been given surrounding Madara's MS, this is probably the one we have the most information on, theory-wise. In fact, it's at such a state that on the internet, people pretty much all but guarantee or act as though it's a fact that this is exactly what Madara's MS ability is. And while I think arguably the theory we are about to delve into probably does have the most evidence for it, I'm not entirely sure it's correct. And I think it might be a case of the internet not only desperate to find an answer, but also possibly not checking their sources. But enough caveats, let's get into it. So by far and away, the most popular theory about what Madara's MS ability is that it's time manipulation. And if that sounds broken to you already, just wait. So the real heat around this theory picked up in around 2011. Well, probably closer to 2012, maybe 2013. A long time ago. Because on February 23rd, 2012, we got a brand new Naruto game. And that Naruto game was Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Generations. This was a game released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, created by CyberConnect 2, and published by Bandai Namco, the same team that pretty much handles all Naruto video games. And this game was fun as any Naruto game is. They're all kind of weak copies of each other, but it was cool. What really got people talking is that this game introduced around 60 minutes worth of new cutscenes. Cutscenes not previously seen in the bits of the anime that we were covering, that usually revolved around key side characters like Kakashi and Hashirama and Madara. And these cutscenes were big, because in these cutscenes, we got a lot of things, like the first look at Shisui Susanoo, which was drawn by Kishimoto, which led people into a dizzying argument about whether or not the Susanoo was canon or not, because the video game wasn't canon, but Kishimoto created it. But that wasn't the end of it, because in a cutscene that we get between Hashirama and Madara, Madara does something we've never seen him do before. He, in a battle against Hashirama, rewinds time. Madara, when put into a disadvantageous situation by Hashirama, simply just hits the reverse button like he's Adam Sandler in Click, which led everybody playing to start scratching their head violently. Since when did Madara have time manipulation powers? Why doesn't he use those more often? Where did this idea come from? How was he ever lost with these abilities? And a lot of people simply sign this off as just saying the video game isn't canon. Therefore, Madara reversing time in a battle against Hashirama is not canon. We don't have to worry about it. He doesn't have some broken ability that would be able to destroy the entire universe. But it might have been canon. See, somewhat maddeningly, there was an interview with the CEO of CyberConnect 2 about 6 months before the game came out, where the CEO was talking about what they're doing to make this a unique Naruto game experience. And what he said during this interview was that they were adding about 60 minutes of cutscenes that would not only flesh out the stories of side characters that are important to the main story of Naruto, but would also be canon, elaborating on this point by saying that the animation studio of Studio Pierrot and the game devs of CyberConnect 2 are working together to make sure that these canon cutscenes are as close to what Naruto should be as possible. But in terms of are the video games canon, that's pretty much the only check towards it is that we've ever received. A one-off interview from 2011, which most likely was conducted in Japanese, and considering the fact that the person writing the article was writing it in English, there might have been some things lost in translation. But where that currently leaves us is that there was a cutscene in a video game that might be canon that shows Madara can reverse time. And what's more than that, that's not the only evidence that Madara can reverse time. So this evidence is sketchier than the last. See, on the internet and basically every single forum that's discussing this topic, there's a databook entry floating around. And this databook entry is entirely in Japanese. But when this databook entry is translated to English, it tells a very interesting story. See, this databook entry is about Madara and his EMS. And in this databook entry, his EMS is referred to as the God of Time. And this databook entry goes on to elaborate exactly what Madara's left eye and right eye abilities are, stating that his left eye has the ability to reverse time, stating that he's able to rewind all of the events around him by up to 4 minutes, meaning that if the last 4 minutes of a fight haven't gone well for Madara, well, doesn't matter, he can simply rewind to the beginning. And what's even more wild than that is that Madara is not only able to rewind the events going on around him, but the memories of everybody affected by this rewinding. That is to say that Madara can not only rewind everything, but also make sure that you don't remember everything that happened in the future that he essentially just deleted. But he has the option to do this, so he can either rewind your memories or not. I don't know why he wouldn't rewind their memories, maybe for the psychological factor of being like, I can literally change time, nothing you can do will ever hit me. But just know that the option is there. Well, Madara's right eye ability grants him the ability to freeze anything in time. Madara is able to freeze anything in time within a 5-kilometer radius of himself for 2 minutes. And Madara is able to interact with the things that he's frozen in space and time. So let's say hypothetically I'm within 5 kilometers of Madara. He would be able to freeze me. And then in those 2 minutes that I cannot move, he could just rip out my heart. Don't worry, he can only use his technique twice a day. Now, the databook goes on to state that Madara usually uses his technique not on whole individuals, but a part of them or their weapons. And Madara selects what part of somebody's body would be advantageous to either stop in time or rewind using the power of the perception of his Sharingan. And that's his Mangekyo Sharingan ability. The ability in one eye to reverse time and the ability in the other to stop it. But here's the thing. I've read every page of every databook, and Madara only appears in 2 of them, the 3rd data book and the 4th data book. And while Madara's entry in the 4th data book is like 5 or 6 pages long and basically details his entire story, his motivations, and his powers, nowhere in that data book is anything about the God of Time Sharingan prowess. Madara's data book entry in data book 3 is 1 page long. Because they didn't want to reveal the fact that Obito wasn't actually Madara, Yellow Mask Obito and Madara are on the same page. They don't tell you what kind of chakra element he has access to. They don't tell you anything. He was supposed to be a mystery character, and he didn't exist, or at least he hadn't appeared in the manga or anime yet for data book 1 or 2. Now, mind you, I spent 45 minutes this morning scouring the internet looking for where this scan could come from. And the only thing I can find about this scan is that it's in every forum, and every single forum has the exact same picture. It is just thousands of people passing around the same photo as evidence. No links to where that photo came from, no evidence of what data book it came from, just the same photo roughly translated into English. And unless there's a data book that somehow I don't know about, I don't think this page is real. I mean, it looks convincing. Everything about it is correct. But there is literally no evidence of it existing outside of the 1 photo that's been posted in every forum being like, look, this is his MS ability. But even if we ignore the shady origins of this evidence, let's say hypothetically this was Madara's Mangekyo Sharingan ability. Why didn't he use it ever? I'd like to present to the court the fact that Madara has died 3 goddamn times. Once when Hashirama stabs him through the back, once when he unplugs himself from the Geto statue, and once when Zetsu stabs him through the back. He was really good at getting stabbed through the back. Why wouldn't Madara, in any of these circumstances, I guess unplugging himself from the Geto statue doesn't really apply, but the other 2 circumstances, not rewind time? Why at no point was Madara not just like, why don't I freeze Hashirama and rip his heart out? Why not freeze the Sage Art True Thousand Hands that was about to destroy Kurama? Sure, it was tall, but it wasn't 5 kilometers tall. Why not freeze Naruto and just grab him and throw him into the mouth of the Geto statue? Why not reverse the moment that Tobirama cut down Izuna? There's so many moments that being able to rewind 4 minutes would have helped Madara massively. And listen, I know, I can hear you screaming,
Nick, it's because Kishimoto didn't want to make him too overpowered. That's why he didn't have him use the MS.
If Kishimoto's true objective was to make sure that Madara wasn't broken, why would he give him the most broken MS ability we've ever heard of? You mean he has Zawardo and the ability to rewind time? Not only would that be incredibly counterintuitive to what Kishimoto was trying to avoid, it wouldn't make sense. Madara would have won. Even if you go with the argument of he wasn't taking any of his battles seriously, Madara held an insane amount of respect for Hashirama. Madara loved Hashirama, like legitimately. Not only as a friend, but as a rival. Talking about him as a ninja that was unrivaled. Madara had absolutely no reason to pull any punches against Hashirama. So why wouldn't he freeze time and do the Killua and sharpen his fingers, pull out Hashirama's heart, and put it in a little baggie for him? If this is actually Madara's MS ability, it is quite literally the biggest plot hole possibly in anime history. It's an asinine thought that requires the viewer to be like,
oh, there's probably a reason he didn't use it.
Which is horrendous writing. Even if you make the argument that Madara was undergoing something similar to what Obito went through when he was the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki, and that Madara couldn't use his MS ability while the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki because it would make him unstable as a host, there are many, and I mean many opportunities before Madara even became a Ten-Tails Jinchuriki that the use of this technique would have not only improved the quality of his life, but seriously sped up his plan. This theory might have evidence, but that evidence is shaky, and the theory itself is asinine. So what do I think Madara's MS ability is? Well, I'd like to harken back to the beginning of this video, when I said there was people who stood in the camp that Madara's MS ability wasn't something that was manifested or created. It was instead a passive buff of sorts. So we've always known that Madara, when it comes to perception, was almost supernatural, to the point where people believe that Madara had foresight as his MS ability. But foresight is quite literally what the Sharingan gives you. By being able to read the physical and chakra movements of somebody by using the Sharingan, you're able to perceive what they're gonna do before they even launch it. It's perception, and perception equals foresight at a certain degree. But even amongst Sharingan users, Madara's perception was supernatural, as Madara was a wielder of the EMS, the Choku Straight Tomei, as he refers to it. And upon seeing how well Sasuke moves and is able to perceive the movements of others, Madara realizes that Sasuke is also a wielder of the Choku Straight Tomei. But even though they wield similar visual prowess at this moment, I mean, they don't actually wield similar visual prowess. At that moment, Madara actually didn't have eyes at all. Madara still has substantially better perception than Sasuke. And if you tie in the other theory that Madara still had access to his MS abilities with no eyes because he was able to manifest his Susanoo with no eyes, this would imply that any visual or perception buffs that Madara had through the MS, he would still have, even without his MS. And technically this point is kind of backed up by the fact that even though Sasuke lost his Amaterasu eye, he's still able to use Amaterasu. But he didn't lose both of his eyes like Madara, so it's a possibility he's simply manifesting his Amaterasu from his Kagutsuchi eye. But if I believe Madara's MS ability is something not all that flashy, then what do I believe that it is? Well, outside of possible enhanced perception that could be equated to foresight, Madara's kind of told us what his MS ability is. See, Madara's MS ability isn't anything flashy, but it is something incredibly useful and tied into his backstory. See, Madara, with the use of his Mangekyo Sharingan, is able to tell the difference between clones and the original. Does that sound stupid? It's not. Let me explain. See, when Madara is battling against the 5 Kage, he comes into combat with one of Hashirama's wood clones, at which point he says it's Hashirama's wood clone jutsu. At which point he says, and I'm going to read here, "How perfect. I was the only one who could see through this as his enemy in the old days, with my eye techniques." See, while this might seem like it's a throwaway line, at this point Madara is revealing to us something that he can do that no other person can. See, one of the first things we learn in Naruto is that shadow clones are indistinguishable from the original. Scent, appearance, chakra networks, everything is exactly the same. And that's the power of shadow clones. You can hide in an army of them and nobody will be able to tell who the original is, which confuses opponents as they strike at people blowing up into clouds, while the original sneaks behind them and delivers a killing blow. But Madara in this moment has stated he's able to see through Hashirama's clone technique. Now, if Madara was able to see through the clone technique of a lesser ninja, you would say,
oh yeah, they're probably just bad at making clones.
But wood clones are arguably the second strongest kind of clones out there outside of Limbo. Hashirama is not the kind to mess up clone jutsu. So how was Madara able to see through what is a clone and what is Hashirama? Well, clearly there needs to be something specific to Madara that sets him apart from everybody else in Naruto history. This isn't the only circumstance when Madara sees through the clone jutsu. Madara had to tell Obito, who was a current wielder of not only a Sharingan, but a Rinnegan, which Naruto was real. On top of this, Madara knew that the Naruto that was with the 5 Kage was not the real Naruto. He understood it was a clone. The only time we've ever seen Madara tricked by a clone jutsu, his Sharingan was deactivated. See, the first time that Madara dies, when Hashirama stabs him through the back with a sword, he's tricked by a wood clone jutsu. And in this particular page, Kishimoto pays heavy attention Madara's eyes. See, not only do we get Madara's facial reaction as he looks backwards at Hashirama stabbing him, but we get a close shot of his eye, and we see his Sharingan is not activated. With the last panel on the page, because in Japanese you read left to right and top to bottom, being him staring at what he thought was Hashirama turning into wood. The attention to Madara's eyes and the fact that this is the only time he hasn't been able to see through clone jutsu implies to us that the use of his MS allows him to see through shadow clones, which is very broken. Let's do a quick rundown of people who have been fooled by shadow clones. Kaguya used her Ash all-killing bone on clones of Naruto without seeing who the real one was. This is to say that Kaguya, with the use of a Rinne Sharingan, couldn't differentiate between what was the original and what was a shadow clone. Wielders of the Byakugan, whose entire purpose is to show you chakra networks, cannot tell the difference between a shadow clone and the original. Momoshiki, Ishiki, Neji, all users of the Byakugan at incredibly high levels could not tell what was a shadow clone and what was the original. And in some regard, the lack of this ability was each of their undoings. Sharingan, Byakugan, Rinne Sharingan, and Rinnegan have all been fooled by this simple technique. So why would Madara have this ability? Well, remember at the beginning of this video when I said that the Mangekyo Sharingan is a reflection of the soul of the person who was awakening it? while they're awakening it. Think back on when Madara awoke his MS. Both him and his brother Izuna murdered their best friend because they heard that's how you awoke their MS, and awake their MS they did. But why did they want to awake their MS in the first place? To defeat the Senju, to kill Tobirama and Hashirama specifically. Izuna and Madara wanted to find a way to level the playing field between them and the Senju. Find a way to bring the Uchiha not only to victory, but glory. But you know what Tobirama created? Shadow Clone Jutsu. You know what else Tobirama created? Flying Raijin. Well, obviously Tobirama didn't really create Flying Raijin until he cuts down Izuna, or at least that was Izuna and Madara's first time seeing it. The concept that the Senju were faster than the Uchiha isn't crazy, considering the fact that they had more chakra, more physical strength, and Senju means the person who's mastered 1,000 tasks. The Senju are supposed to be full-rounded shinobi who are incredible at everything in order to make up for the fact that they didn't receive the dojutsu from Hagoromo. So wouldn't it make sense that Madara, who was trying to awaken the MS specifically to defeat Tobirama and Hashirama, would manifest abilities that would not only increase his perception, but also see through the Senju's strongest technique? A shadow clone is still powerful to this day. Imagine if somebody were to pull that out of nowhere and you had never heard of it before. You're telling me I now have to fight 4 Hashiramas and I don't know which one is the real one? More likely than not, the creation of these new jutsus from Tobirama that Tobirama was absolutely teaching Hashirama created a power gap between the Senju and the Uchiha that stirred Madara and Izuna to close the gap. Not only does this theory make sense based off what we've seen from Madara, it makes sense based off what we know about the Mangekyo Sharingan. The Mangekyo Sharingan gives you what you want. For Sasuke, it gave him the ability to burn down the world that destroyed Itachi and the ability to control the chaos of that destruction. For Itachi, it gave people the ability to control people's perception and therefore be the god of their reality, while also giving him an ability to burn away the lies of hypocrisy that had forced him into this position. Every MS wielder's abilities are a reflection of who they were when they unlocked them. And since we know exactly what Madara wanted when he was unlocking his MS, drawing a direct line between his wants and possible abilities is pretty easy, especially when those abilities are corroborated by the fact that he's able to do something that nobody else in the Naruto universe is able to do. So while it may not be flashy and while it's never been said in words, I genuinely believe this is his Mangekyo Sharingan ability. It's not only backed up by the manga, but also from our understanding of the universe, which I find substantially more believable than a probably non-canon video game in a scan that appeared from nowhere. But what do you guys think? Do you believe that Madara had the ability to control time and just decided to not use it for some reason? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, it's a possibility that Kishimoto literally foreshadowed Sarada and Ada fighting in 2014. You think he would give Madara some MS ability that was disgustingly broken and be like,
oh yeah, he just doesn't use it.